You're listening to the Primal Happiness Show, a podcast dedicated to helping you thrive in this crazy modern world. Every Tuesday, we explore the nature of how our minds really work, what exactly the human animal requires to thrive, and how we can live happier and more fulfilling lives. If you're new here and haven't yet taken our free class, then there's no better place to get a jump start on reclaiming your primal happiness. It's where we'll guide you step by step through our antidote to today's modern world. Simply head on over to primalhappiness.co/antidote to get the free class and discover how to thrive without having to move to a planet that's not so crazy as ours. But now, your host, Leanne Brook-Tyler.
Hello, my beautiful people. A huge warm welcome back to the show. In today's crazy modern world, men and women are living shallow, disconnected, and unfulfilling lives. So we created the path for those who are ready to reclaim their wildness and actualize their deepest gifts. So, wow, these are strange times indeed. What a rupture this is to our species' way of life. So much is being uncovered and experienced right now. I hope you're finding ways to stay connected with loved ones during this time. And I'm sorry we missed releasing a show last week. It was actually due to the impact of all of this on our own lives, but we should be on track to release a weekly episode again from now on. Something I'm really present to you this week is how this kind of rupture to our usual way of life can make us fearful. So we close up and go more inside our heads. But instead, this is an invitation. We can use this time as an opening to descend and go deeper into the experience of who we are, and specifically into the wisdom of our bodies. So if you're a woman, unraveling the body could be perfect for you. It's a crucible of wild awakening for women in which we'll unravel the mysteries, freedom, and gifts of your body. This is what we'll be unraveling together. The mysteries of your intuitive wisdom. Discover and trust in your body's deep knowing. The knots and binds of conditioning and shame. Reclaim the freedom to be a celebration of your essence. And the gifts of your body's bounteousness. Uncover, embody, and express your radiant magnetic power. Yummy. So, women, if you are feeling your body calling out for that unraveling, please do go check out all the details now at primalhappiness.co/unravel. That's unravel with one L. I would love to have you join us. And now onto this week's show. It's with Dominic Scaffidi. Dominic's purpose is to inspire greatness. He is committed to people and organizations being extraordinary and producing extraordinary results. Dominic has coached executives and senior leaders in a variety of organizations as they take on challenges including new roles, goals, and dealing with significant change and new projects. He helps leaders engage the full potential of their people to achieve unprecedented performance. His approach is to engage with leaders through intentional conversations that cause them to generate new thinking, create new strategies, and produce new actions in areas that are most important. And I suspect as you listen to Dominic talk on this show, you'll totally understand why he's able to create that kind of change. So in this show, we spoke about how we can be powerful creators of our lives, even and especially in these strange times of change and challenge. We explored some of my own personal examples of creation, and then Dominic broke down the laws or principles that he sees were at play. This was awesome. He is a self-described geek of this kind of stuff. It was amazing. And we went into just really deep, magical and spiritual realms. It was such an enjoyable, helpful and inspiring episode to co-create with Dominic. I really hope you get as much from it as I did. Let's dive in. Hello, Dominic. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Leanne. It's such a pleasure to be on your show.
Oh, wow. Well, we were just saying, I mean, I can't remember how long ago it was that we did our last episode together, which was just gorgeous, like a real 2 years ago. Wow.
Dude, it's 2 years. It was 2018. I'll always remember it. It was an awesome experience.
We really got into in fact, I would really recommend listeners go listen to that, although I'm sure we'll be covering some of the same stuff, but of course it's going to be a new creation. So let's see. But what I really loved about that episode, and also really love about you, is, to me, you are this living, breathing example of someone who is so deeply in touch with that kind of, like, what I feel is innate to all of us, but that creative spirit, that way we can just work with the world in this magical way. And I say magical because it can look and feel very magical, but it's also super practical, like it works.
Mm-hmm.
And so and as you notice, like, the reason we even originally put this call in the diary to record this together, which was probably maybe a month ago, maybe quite a month ago, where you said you'd noticed I guess more and more had opened up to being that way in my own life, and said, how about we jump on a call and kind of like, share what's going on for us, where you are, where I am. And then in the meantime, of course, the whole coronavirus has happened. I think it was kind of happening when we originally agreed to have the call, but since then it's obviously, become this force in the world that just wasn't the case then. And so we were talking just then before we started recording about, like, wow, what we're present to in terms of the opportunity created for those of us who are creating in the world in this way, like the opportunities that are being brought present to us during these times, but then also the opportunity we have to speak to this idea of being creators in the world in these often very challenging times for many, and doing that in a way that's, compassionate. These are times that are going to provide real life difficulties for people. But then also, how can we all tap into this creative spirit in a way that's kind of actually works, is practical, isn't just bypassing and kind of la, la, la. If I think positively and keep my emotions good, I can get through it. Like, I feel there's something much more deep available, something much more practical available, that I really think we'll hopefully do justice to. So I think, this feels now an even more timely, rich episode than we were planning to have. So I'm thrilled to be having it.
Yes, I am so excited too. And there is so much to learn by this extreme example of what we're living through. It's unprecedented to many of us. And I love what you said in the beginning. What sparked it as well was it was watching you, through our online interactions, and just noticing how, I don't know what the word is, but powerful a creator you had become. It seemed to me from watching that you could just dream and imagine something which would very quickly manifest. And I just thought, wow, okay, you're there's so much to talk about in kind of what's you're experiencing and what's happening. So I was really excited to have a conversation with you, kind of at the place that you are. It's very powerful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that reflection. And it has, what you've just described there, that very much has been my experience. It's not like my life was the opposite to that. I think it's been deepening into that way of being over the last, 7 years or so. And then in the last, I'd say, year in particular, it does very much like almost this kind of like, whoa, I need to be careful what I'm dreaming of and thinking of, because I do that and then it's bam, it's there. And like to quite an uncanny, like magical extent, that very much it has been my experience of late.
Like an acceleration of the time from you've imagined or conceived the idea to a manifestation of that idea. So there's like a speed up. And there's this part that it was my impression. Of course, I'm not, there, but it's just my impression. Like there was this acceleration of that time part. And I want to comment on the word magical as well, because there is it can be heard in different ways, right? It can be heard in magical, like, oh, mysterious, and we don't know. And sometimes people will hear that, and that, and then that's where it gets into a realm of, oh, well, that's just superstition, that's not really going on, you don't know what's happening. And so we will use the word magic, or not. The other kinds of words that get used are, well, that's just coincidence. These are only synchronicities, like, oh, it's random. Those are random things that are happening. And I think what's important to note is there is nothing random in the universe. There is nothing random. The universe operates only by law. It only works by law. And when we don't know what's going on, it's magical or mysterious. And when you look deeper, you notice an order to it. You notice a flow to it. You notice a way that it is, which is in fact always operating by law. The greater we understand that part of it, then it just has us be more effective in this universe, in this reality that we're living in. By the way, the cool thing that I'm noticing too is that doesn't take the magic away.
Yes. Yeah.
It does not. It still does not, because the universe will surprise and delight you in its manifestation. That's an Abraham Hicks quote, and you're going to hear lots of them on here because I'm a big follower of the teachings of Abraham Hicks. As a matter of fact, we might even preface to suggest that most ideas and concepts that I'm going to talk about, you can look more into Abraham Hicks and hear that, because I don't want anyone thinking that I'm saying, or that necessarily sourced in me, because it's, I've learned a lot from there. But there's a part in there that says the universe will surprise and delight you, which would make you think, well, then it's not my creation, then it must be happening to me. But, we'll talk as we go, but you've asked for every bit of it. You just don't realize. You just don't realize how you've been asking for it all.
Yeah. Yes.
In the way that
I love that. So I would like to share an example, and it may well have been the example that kind of made you then be prompted to suggest we do this. And I want to share it because I think it is a really neat, quick example of exactly what we're talking about. Quick, both in terms of I can describe it quickly, but it's also, how you talk about that acceleration. It's a great example of that acceleration. And then I'd like to, I guess, explore what you're noticing show up in your own experience in this, this really strange time, something that, most of us never experienced before. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that. So first of all, my example was I'd just filled the last Wake in the Wild Feminine Circle filled to overflowing. And the interesting thing is that those words, that word overflowing, was actually my intention. I'd actually set that intention myself when I was enrolling for it. And I looked back and thought, why did I do that? I've given myself a problem that I didn't need to have. Like if I'd set the intention that I'd like to, and it was kind of like filled to overflowing with amazing women. And so it sold out, and then I was having to turn women away, and then remembered, oh my goodness, the intention I set was filled to overflowing. Of course, overflowing means they're not going to fit. And so I was noticing oh gosh, I've just created this position I'm in where I'm having to turn women away, which doesn't actually feel that good to my system, because they're women who I would have loved to have included. They really felt drawn. And I created this by setting that intention. So I was noticing all that happen. And then I was like, well, there's those women. And then there's also these women who, for other reasons, were a no this time, but were also really feeling drawn to this work. And so for some of them, they just weren't ready to sit in that kind of really raw, intimate circle. They just weren't ready to it's very, you have to be willing to share at quite a personal level. And I knew for some of them that was just, they just weren't ready. Sometimes it was just simple things like time zones. So I was like, oh, what if there's something else being called to be created here that would allow those women, all of those women, to be part of that. So that was the Saturday. And I was away for the weekend, had been attending a wedding. So I had loads of other stuff going on. I literally just put out a simple Facebook post saying, Wake Up Feminine is sold out. And I'm really present. There's a number of women who couldn't make this one. And maybe I could create something for you. That's all I said. And then immediately started getting responses back saying, I would love that. Oh my gosh, I would love that. And at that point, I didn't even know, it wasn't even a thing. It didn't have a name. I didn't even know what it was. And I was straight away getting this response back yes, we want that. And so I think on the Monday, so 2 days later, I was like, well, it looks like there's an appetite for this thing. Okay. It looks like it's going to get created. And then it was just the ideas came thick and fast. And by the Friday of that week, so less than a week later that I had that first idea, it was out in the world, I'd created, because it just flew through me like magic, again like magic. There was I had the page there, payment mechanism, and within an hour of me releasing it, the first enrollment came through. And now, wow. I don't know how many women have signed up. I was literally almost every day I'm getting another woman enrolling in it. But it happened that fast.
Wow.
6 days from idea to first woman enrolled.
Oh, wow. Oh my God.
Is that accelerated enough for you there, Dominic?
Wow. There are so many principles, laws that work, the elements that are at work that can be describing that. It might be, I love your example. And we could spend the whole time just finding all the pieces in it.
I would love to hear your take on it, just to be clear, because you're so much more I feel very much just I'm in it, discovering it to a large extent, whereas I know you've got that level of mastery where you can actually distill it. So I think that would be actually really instructive, certainly for me, but I think for listeners too, if you're up for that.
Okay, and yes, I am a geek at the what's operating there, right? I just and this is what I love. You're in the game, playing the game, and I'm kind of I see that, and I see this, incredible manifestation of the speed. And you're right. This was the example when I saw what you posted. I thought, oh my God, you're at a whole other place in this, where that is. And there's so much to say about it, because I'm a bit of a geek and really just interested in understanding that and how that happens. So I think it's important foundationally, though. What we'll do is just foundationally, we are always creating reality. So what you and I are talking about right now is not an instruction set for people. Leanne and I are discussing how to create reality. That is not what we're talking about. What we're doing is we're describing what goes on. We're trying to understand. We're looking deeply into it to understand, how does that happen? What happened there? How does that happen? What are the principles at play as something like that goes on? Now, none of it makes sense unless you understand who we're talking about. So when we say Leanne created this thing, so who are we talking about when we say that? Because there is some kind of surface level manifested version of Leanne who I'm speaking to. But I'm going to suggest, and everyone will know this, is that there's way more to you than what you're even aware of. And without that understanding of all that you are, then this idea of creation it's just going to be difficult. Because if anyone's listening and they only know themselves to be some physical body and some sort of psychology that begins and ends at the borders of their skin, then here's the deal. We don't have much to work with when it comes to creation. If that's all that you are, then good luck to you. The only thing you can do is if you see yourself as this physical body and that's the end of it, then all you can do is move around other things that have been created. you cannot create.
Wow. 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 Wow.
You, this physical, can pick things up that have been created and move them around. You can go find money that's been created and somehow get that into your bank account. But that is not creation. That is playing around and messing around with what is created and what is manifested. Because, as Dick and Bettinger said, that which is created cannot create. That which is created cannot create. And so the manifested version of who we are is an idea that's it's a creation in itself. And that creation is not a creator.
Wow. Wow. Stop there for a moment.
Yeah.
Firstly, I just love that. Like when you it just suddenly I always imagined like Lego figures, like when we're operating at that level, it's almost like a Lego figure moving another Lego figure.
Yes.
Just like, wow. Yes. It just suddenly metaphorically like, boom, switch straight in. But I just want to ask you a bit of a kind of like, it's not really but I think these things are really good to ask as we go. So on the one hand, you said at the start, this isn't actually even about how to create, because we always are. Like we are.
You're always creating.
So how does that work alongside what you've just said? Because it feels like there's a paradox here. It's like one hand, we're always creating, so we can't help but not. On the other hand, we can't create if we're creating from a creation.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. You are always creating. And what I'm suggesting is not always is that deliberate and intentional. So when you look at your bank account and you say, oh my God, there's not enough money, you created that. That's what I'm saying. When you run your business and you say, I don't have any clients, they're really hard to get. What I'm saying is you've created that the creation is always going on. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And you're not conscious to how that's happening. And because you're not conscious to how that's happening, then you decide to take action. Because if my bank account is like this, then what I need to do is make some calls and talk to people in this world of scarcity and try to dig through a maze to find a person willing to give me money. But by the way, no, people don't give you money, so it's kind of hard to get it, and they don't want to. So you're creating all of it.
Yeah.
You're always creating.
Honestly, I can't help but keep seeing this through the lens of this like Lego metaphor now. It's like as soon as you plonk yourself down as a player in the Lego form, you've only got what's kind of on that Lego. I don't know what Lego boards are called, but you've only got that to play with.
Okay. I love the Lego metaphor. This is perfect. So again, if we use the Lego metaphor, it's excellent because the little player that you put together could be a perfect analogy, perfect metaphor for that is the physical you. So that's the guy that's in there, the girl that's in there, in the actual world being created, right?
Yeah. So
now there's a lot of value to this. I love your metaphor. This is very good because that you can only experience that world. And again, metaphors aren't perfect, so it's not going to get exactly right. But imagine like literally you could become it. This is important. You'd become the player.
Yes.
Then the thing is you can only experience the world through the perspective of the player. Right. Yes. That's important because if you're going to go sit in a car and go talk to that other Lego person, like you can't do it from on high. You need to do it as the player. Yeah. So Abraham says, who you are is pure source energy. So who you are is pure consciousness. So that would be the liane that stands above the game, above the Lego board.
Yeah.
There is liane in our metaphor. And a part of you is focused into this physical body. which would be the little player that you just created.
Mhm.
So who you are is pure source energy, and a part of you is focused into this physical existence, the little Lego player, while the greater part of you remains non-physically focused. The greater part of you in that whole game is actually not in the game.
Mm.
This is important in creation because although you are the player, you are so much more than that. You are so much more than that. But so who you are is so much more. And even your attention and your consciousness and your intelligence goes far beyond that game and that board. Only a tiny speck of you is focused in there to literally play that game. Now,
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm. Can I just share something that's come up for me? I'm a big fan of, in fact, the first book that I read on this topic, but they all seem to say very similar things, was Journey of Souls by, I think he's called Dr. Michael Newton. And he was, I think he's died. If not, I'm sorry, Dr. Michael Newton, talking about you in the past. He was a hypnotherapist, I guess you could say, who kind of accidentally found himself working with his clients stroke patients, where he kind of, I think, was initially taking them into like regression, and then kind of accidentally sort of hopped over into lives between lives, i.e. the afterlife, i.e. the spirit world. And then noticed that these stories that people were talking about when they were talking about being in that experience of spirit were so similar. Like people were describing the same experiences, using the same metaphors, the same descriptions over and over again. And so that's what his kind of work became. And I read Journey of Souls a week after I lost my dad. And it really was, I can credit that book to being the kind of starting point of my entire journey into this way of being, this work that I do now. Like it all came from that book. I mean, you could say it came from my dad dying, but it came from really that book was what kind of set me on this path. And I've read other books since, like Many Lives, Many Masters. I've just recently read something like Hacking the Afterlife. They all speak about it in such the same way, but it also mirrors what you're talking about here, which is that part of you that is, you could call your soul, that part of you that's in spirit is actually the larger part of you. And it's a small piece that comes into this realm to explore the world here. And I just wanted to say that because it's, the more I've seen myself and life through that lens, and I've just sort of, I kind of say that was the start of my journey. And I've just written, and the reason I'm saying this, I don't think this is a coincidence. The more I've circled back to like that being really present for me, that way of seeing myself has, I believe, been a huge part of me being able to kind of burst into this way of creating. It's like, I don't think it's possible to create in such a powerful way without having that understanding of self being more than the Lego player.
Oh, right on. Right on. That is clearly happening with you. I'm going to call it a blending and aligning of the Lego player from the perspective of all that you are. So there's a blending of that, and the more that it's let's say less distinguishable, the distinction between, then you are bringing and Abraham says you are aligning, you are flowing the energy that creates worlds is what you bring into creation.
Whoa, I got tingles then.
well, and let's the metaphor is perfect because the Lego player, if he becomes Leanne, if can sort of blend with Leanne, is literally sourcing the energy that creates worlds, the energy that is creating the entire Lego world that the player is in.
Yes.
You are co-creating. You are co-creating with pure source energy. You are co-creating with God, it could be said.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I love this. It's so funny how I'm sure you've experienced this so much. You can read these things, talk about these things, hear people talk about these things, and then just sometimes where someone says it, like, I must have heard someone saying similar things so many times. And then when you said it in that moment, it was just like I had such an experiential embodied experiential moment of like, oh my goodness, it feels exactly like that. It was like just a real knowing as you said that word. It kind of like rippled through my skin as you said it. So wow.
Oh my God. Yeah. Now that is, I thank you for saying that, because this is the deal. And it's great for any listeners on here. What you just said is so important. And I say this to my coaching clients all the time when I'm working with them. It's like, whatever you do, don't listen to me. Don't believe this stuff. Like, because I say a lot of stuff and you could say, oh, well, he seems like he read it, or he's like, yeah, maybe I should follow that too, or maybe I should believe that too. It makes zero difference to believe any of this. It makes zero difference to sort of think in this way. Zero difference. But what just happened there is that something I said has resonated with what is true for you. What you just got is something that you know.
Yeah.
You didn't get anything from me. Mm-hmm. So you just got something that you know to be true. And now that is worthwhile. That is very worthwhile. And when I'm working with my clients, that is the thing for me, is I want them to get what they know. I don't want them listening to me.
Oh, I love that. And it just really, it brings to mind, we use words like resonate, and, sometimes they can be very like intellectual, like, oh, intellectually that resonates with me. But when we talk about that real true resonance, that like soul felt resonate, that heartfelt resonance, it actually feels like it is an embodied experience. And that is really what's happening, isn't it? It's like the words that are coming from you are resonating with something in me that already has that knowledge, that already has that sense. And it's kind of like a literal kind of chime.
Absolutely. And that is, and what happens is, even the word insight, right, is you're seeing it in you. You see that. And so whatever we're doing in this conversation, but it's you go, oh my God, I know that. Oh, wow, I know that. Right. And that is resonance. So it resonates with that you already know. Yes.
Oh, gorgeous. So tell me where you want to go next, because this is
okay. Well, my gosh. So I think where you just took it is I think it's a very important part, because in this creation, there are, and by the way, I kind of struggled as the whole non-duality thing showed up in the community, because I'm like, they're like, oh no, it's all consciousness. And I asked Abraham, because I've had 9 opportunities to have
only 9.
9.
Can I just check though? Is this 9 out of 9?
It is now 9 out of 11.
Oh, so two missed. But
yes, so 2 workshops that I did not, was not in the hot seat. Yes, so right. 9 of the conversations I've had with Abraham. But I asked them, I said, the question I asked was about consciousness. Isn't there, because Abraham speaks to who you really are, and, you're here in this physical manifested form, but then who you really are, they, pure source energy consciousness. But they'll speak about a metaphor that they use is they'll speak to your inner being. So I said, well, wait a minute. You say inner being, and then you say me, and are you like, you're talking about 2 of us, and right? Like, isn't the consciousness only one consciousness? And I was surprised how quickly Abraham moved on. It was like, of course there's only one consciousness, but so what? What's important is that there are two perspectives. There is the perspective of all that you are, and then there is the perspective of the Lego figure in the created world. And both are essential to creation. So there is the consciousness where you are thinking, but there is the distinguishing and taking the perspective of what you are thinking. That you are seeing the thought that's been created, the thought that's arising within consciousness. So there are two perspectives. And so that becomes essential to creation.
Wow, I love that. Yeah. That's a great word, isn't it? Perspectives. It kind of, for me, it creates a lightness, like a playfulness. Like it isn't a fact. It isn't matter. It's a perspective, which it feels to me a really helpful, light way to hold it.
Right. So then you take a Lego figure and you've got a perspective, and if you're Leanne, and versus the Lego figure, who you are as that, what is it you will create next? What will be created next? Where do you want to go next? What's the next thing you want to imagine? Because here's the thing: as pure source energy consciousness, you can create anything, right? You can create anything. So how you determine is, what does the figure want? What is the desire of the figure?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. Yes. Which totally, I speak so much about the role of desire in my work, particularly with women. I mostly work with women. It's not just because it applies to women, just to be clear. And the power of that, us tapping into that and using it as a kind of creational fire. Ultimately, you're going to be creating. So why not create the thing you desire? Now, why not create from there?
Well, from where else would you create? Like, let's understand what desire is. If you took that Lego figure, is there any desire in that Lego figure? So in that physical thing, is there any desire there? I mean, if we took Leanne out of the picture,
aside from, I'm guessing we could say the desire to survive, the desire to be fed, to sleep. But from a deeper perspective, I'd probably say no.
Okay, and here's the thing. Yes, and it'll complicate it because the Lego figure is made up of other creations. Cells which have turned into organs and all of that. All of them are points of consciousness asking and desiring.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's
all
juicy.
Of them. All of them are.
You said that, I felt like all my cells were kind of leaping in recognition, like, oh, he sees
me. What makes you you got thirsty and want water? Do you think you did that?
I love that.
That is a desire that comes from the creation that is together as you.
Wow.
So, but that'll complicate it. Let's just keep it simple.
This is so lovely. I'm just doing this.
Let's simplify back to that pure physical Lego figure. Now, take the Lego figure. Without Leanne, is there desire?
No.
It sits there dead.
Yeah.
It sits there dead.
The plastic. Yeah.
It's a piece of plastic. Mm-hmm. It wants nothing. It goes nowhere. It has no interests. Notice? No interest. It has nothing. It is a piece of plastic sitting there. Nothing that is created can create.
Yeah.
So only Leanne, focused as that character and desiring a house and desiring one with, this, and to put a car outside of it and then put trees around it, because that is the only thing that has desire. and it is expressing through that Lego figure, and it is being created in its world. And by the way, you then need the Lego figure in order to experience and enjoy that which you've created.
Yeah.
Without that Lego figure, you're not in that world.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love this so much. And just as an aside, if you can hear my children, I'm not sure if it's like excitement or bickering. Could be a mix. But as a result of the coronavirus, we're currently self-isolating. My son has a cough, which probably is coronavirus. So we're all self-isolating for the next 14 days. And I was mentioning to you before we started recording, this is such a lovely example of all of what we're talking about here, that I certainly always had this strong desire to explore what it would be like to home educate. I'm a huge believer in that kind of like wild, curious spirit of all of us, but particularly children, and how that can be allowed to kind of follow its, in fact, very much what we're talking about here, really, follow its own desires and passions to learn, to create. And so I've always had, it's never quite felt like the right time to try it, but I've always had that desire. And so this opportunity to, actually, I can feel myself getting emotional talking about it, like this opportunity to like play with this, like what would work for us. Like I still, I have also a deep desire to work. I love recording conversations like this. I love doing the work I do with my clients. And I love the fact that my children can like have that freedom to explore what they want to explore. Like they just spent the last hour reading when I did my last call, because they both love reading. They chose to do maths. And so I just said, like, you do it however you want. Like there's all these resources. You can do quizzes for each other. You can play counting games, use apps online, whatever you want to do, go do it while I'm doing this call with Dominic. And that just, again, such a gorgeous example where we're getting to create the thing that I've always had this desire to create. And like, of course, there's tricky elements to this, not least the fact I'm trying to record this for you, and I can certainly hear it in the room. But honestly, like, I would choose, like, I have chosen this, and I would choose this, if that makes sense. Like, this is just so delightful for us to get this opportunity for however long it lasts for to experience this. So yeah, that for me is like a wonderful example of, I wouldn't have chosen, some of the hardships and difficulties that have been created by this time. And yet I can see that does also create these gorgeous opportunities to create with that.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's so many places we could go with that. Because in all of the challenges or limitations or unwanted aspects of life, they are sparking desire. They're literally sparking desire. Maybe this is a good way to look at it. So what is that desire? What is that desire? That desire is a desire. Now, this Sadhguru who has said it in this way. He said, what you feel is a desire for more. This is life comes through you and you feel a desire for more. Because remember, life is infinite, eternal, and you are finite, right? The Lego figure is finite. So when the consciousness of Leanne is limited and focused into this Lego figure, the urge is the desire is a desire of expression. It's a desire of expression that goes far beyond what that figure could do, right? The intelligence, the abilities go far beyond. So the feeling of desire is the feeling of life wanting to express through. And it shows as interest, it shows as desire. what I loved is Sadhguru described it as a desire for more. It feels like a desire for more, but what it is, in fact, he says, is a desire for all, which would suggest it is not as a desire for more, it is a desire for all. That suggests I want to be all that I am. Is what the desire actually is. I want to be all that I am. It's to go back to the all that I am as infinite, eternal, all unlimited. But from that focus, the feeling and perspective is for more, for more, for more, for expansion, eternal expansion. Yes.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's so juicy. And wow. I love going back to what you were saying right at the start of this, when you're talking about it as laws. I love the way you're able to, you clearly, I mean, you described yourself as a geek, like you have geeked out on this to the max. I love the way you're able to distill it back to, these are big, broad, deep concepts. And I really love the way you're able to like distill them into things that are really easily understood, and also kind of run through, like cut through all of these experiences, all these examples we're talking about. So like, I feel really appreciative of having you able to do that.
Thank you for that. Thank you. So it kind of like this started because you said resonance and feeling, because we want to include that in creation is feeling. We want to include it because that feeling becomes guidance. It is what it is. So the who you are expresses through that physical. And what happened just now when you said, "Oh, that something really resonated with me." So it, as opposed to resonating with the Lego figure who knows whatever they know, and they only know what they know. They only know the content that's gone on the hard drive. There's something in our speaking which accessed what Leanne knows, as opposed to the physical. And then that was the resonance you felt, is in a knowing this broader thing that you already do know. And it kind of clicked or came through there.
Yeah, I feel it almost, as you're talking then, it's almost like it gets pulled through into your body, into the Lego form.
Right. So that idea of resonance, we are talking energy. So there is this energy that is all that you are. When all that you are is expressing through that physical, and it'll never fully express, because again, for you, you're limited. You're limiting yourself to that perspective, and you are far more than that. But as you look through it, as you express through that perspective, the vibration, let's call the full energy of all that is you, is a very different vibration than what might be the vibration or perspective of the physical little character. So from the perspective of all that is you, all is well, all is good. It is never not good. There is nothing that can go wrong in the Lego game. There is nothing you are worried about, because if anything crashes, like a coronavirus comes through, you could rebuild it. Like, I mean, when you are in the perspective of Leanne, first of all, you're not even affected. The full who you really are is untouched, unscathed by that. Now, the Lego character might be, but not you.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a feeling and perspective in all that you are, which is that all is well, nothing's going wrong ever. Right? There's only creation. There's only expression happening. In the game, it's different. Right. So now in the game, the coronavirus is here, or you've lost money, or the clients aren't coming. And now you focus on the manifestation, the creation. When you are focused on that, from that perspective, you activate the vibration of that within you. You line up to that vibration within you, and you've activated that. And from there, the perspective keeps getting more and more evidence. So more and more evidence for that. So maybe I'll pause because I'll see where I've gone with this. And we'll...
Do you know what? I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, we're out of time, and I'm just so loving this conversation. We might need to make this a part 2, actually. But there was something you said just then that I feel like could be a helpful way to like leave it on a kind of hopefully a helpful note that's again relevant to these circumstances. I loved everything you were just saying there, and it completely aligns with everything I've noticed in my own experience, again, particularly over the last year and even the last couple of months, where it just feels like that is accelerated so much. In fact, if you haven't read, have you read the book The Magician's Way? Because you dig it.
No. I'm going to get that.
Gorgeous book. And I need to set up the details, but I'm planning to get the author, William Whitecloud, on the podcast as well. Really
great
book. It lines so much with what you're saying here. And his work a lot is on focus. And that is what I really kind of like, for me, that was so helpful, noticing that difference between focusing on what I don't want and focusing on what I do want. And which again sounds really bloody obvious, but I think for me, it was so helpful to really get clear on, firstly, the power of that focus, like where we're focusing is kind of really the direction of travel. And as you say, you'll see more and more evidence to back up where you're focusing, wherever that focus is. And also the way that we will have that kind of the Lego figures perspective will keep hooking us in one way. Like it almost wants to hook us back into the fear, into the negativity, into what I don't want. And to like just almost like hold the space for that as being okay. Like, okay, that's all right. You've got that perspective. It's all right for you to have that perspective, but it's not going to be my primary perspective. My primary perspective, my primary focus is towards what I actually desire. And so it's okay. You can have that. And I'm going to keep going back to focus on what it is I desire.
Right. Beautiful. And I just want to make sure we don't beat up the Lego figure because the Lego figure is wonderful. These physical bodies are incredible. If you knew, Abraham says, if you knew how badly you wanted to be in these physical bodies, you would stop spending all of this time trying to get out of them, which people do through meditation and through dropping their ego and trying to. Right? So you wanted to focus here.
Yeah, sorry, I have to stop you there because I just got a proper thrill go through me. Like I can't even tell you how much I love the human body. Again, that's why it's so much part of my work, kind of returning women to their bodies. And that just what you said there is just delightful. Like just the thought that we really didn't just choose into being here, but like, we really wanted to be here in these gorgeous bodies of ours. Like, I love that.
You did. And so then when you talk about unwanted and unwanted, right? Well, the deal is that in every particle of the universe is what is wanted and the absence of it. In every particle of the universe is what is wanted and the absence of it. And you can focus wherever you like. And when you pick up any subject, like money or my business. So if I pick up money, what will happen is it's like having a stick and with a polarity to it. And there is an abundance of money and then there is the absence of money and it exists within the subject. And how are you focusing? And you're focusing, and here's where the feeling and resonance comes in. When you are focused in the direction of your desire, it feels good. When you are focused in the direction of your desire, it feels good. When you are focused against yourself, it will feel bad. What better guidance do you want than that? Because when you are focused in the direction of your desire, you are aligned as the Lego figure with the perspective of Leanne. You are aligned with the perspective of Leanne and the desire that Leanne has for creation. You are aligned with what is wanted, and that feels good. And if you deviate from it and you start to self-doubt and you start to believe that maybe you don't have what it takes or whatever it is, you will feel bad. And if you stay focused in that direction, that this is in any direction you focus, you will continue to vibrate in resonance with that direction. And the feeling that you are feeling is the reason we call it dissonant or harmonious versus, harmonious. It's in harmony with all that you are, or dissonant to all that you are, is because the vibration and the energy either is matching Leanne and all that you are, or it is not matching. And so that feeling keeps guiding you in terms of where are you looking, what are you thinking, what's your perspective on this? And the guidance toward all that you are always feels good, always feels better than where you are now. So
oh, I love how you've broken that down. It's gorgeous. And again, so it's like you're kind of retro explaining so much that I've been experiencing exactly as you're describing. It's so beautiful. So to a close, looking again at, I know for many at the moment, there's the coronavirus has brought up a lot of unwanted, a great way of describing it, unwanted circumstances, whether that be, businesses having to close, so worries about money, whether that be worries about health, having to isolate and be lonely, a lot of unwanted things. So if you're willing, I would love for you just to speak directly into that, to really look at these circumstances that we've currently been given. They're here on the board. I'd love you to speak to what would be helpful for people. No, like in their perspective at the moment, there's a lot of unwanted stuff. I'd love you to offer them something to close this show with.
Yeah. Thanks. You picked the most complicated thing. But maybe I'll touch on some principles that will really only leave food for thought, probably, right? Probably leave food for thought. When it comes to that Lego board, it gets confusing because who are we talking about? In a way, we do say it's the Lego figure that's creating. It is the Lego. We say it because it's simple, especially for others on the Lego board. I mean, you don't want to be, what are you going to talk? Like, you got to say, Leanne created that program and she filled it and all of that. It's just easier, right, to talk that way. But yes. Okay. So, but on that Lego board, you're there and you're as an individual perspective, as a distinct perspective, and focused on wanted or unwanted. And the more you're focused in the direction of desire, the more you're creating. So, however, you are not the only, you are not the only thinker. So there are other Lego figures on that board. See, we co-create, we're co-creating with others. So there are other thinkers. And now, in fact, I don't want to overcomplicate it, but ultimately, every other figure is still Leanne, but let's not even go there. Let's just keep it simple. Like, you've got other players who are more than that, but ultimately, So anyway, so there are other thinkers.
Can I just really briefly tell me if it's impossible to do justice this quickly? But so from what I understand, let me know if I've got this wrong. There is one consciousness, and then it's distilled into these specific perspectives called Leanne, Dominic, all the rest of us. Is there, would you say, a kind of, and it may be just one of those things that's just beyond our kind of human minds to be able to quite grasp. But would you say there's also a kind of a perspective of us, and you could call it a soul or who we are in the spirit world, that has a perspective too? So it's very much an aspect of all consciousness, but it does also have a perspective as kind of
very
my
good
higher self, let's say. Would you
very
say
good
kind of works
very
like
good
that? Mm-hmm.
Very good. Let's say that there is a pure light, right? A pure light. That pure light, if you took a color prism, and then we said there's blue. So is blue separate? Is it separate from light? Is it different than light?
Mm.
And yet there is blue and red and orange, right? So automatically that pure source energy, one consciousness is already refracting and into distinct aspects.
Mm.
We're still only in one thing. However, the blue comes out, and the blue becomes even more, it continues to expand. It begins to expand into a particular soul or consciousness, which then focuses into the Lego figure of Leanne.
Brilliant.
So,
okay. Mm-hmm.
So yes, it is even in the non-physical. Even in non-physical, there is perspective and distinction. Mm-hmm. However, to be clear, from our human form, Abraham says, from your human form, you could not tell the distinctions. So when you go back to the inner soul of Leanne, Abraham will never get into a conversation about my inner being versus your inner being versus the other. It's like nonsense. It's at that point it's this pure source energy, but it's and distinguishing between isn't. So because those distinctions, once you're non-physical, are subtle to us, we have a very coarse on the physical plane. A very coarse manifested energy that has happened here. By the way, even the physical plane is all spiritual. We are never talking about anything other than spiritual and consciousness. Physical is simply a form or manifestation of that. So we're never not talking about it.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So sorry to go back. If I just wanted to make sure that we had that clear as much as we can, knowing it is very nuanced. And then going back to what you were saying about there being other Lego players, because I think this is really key to your point.
So this is truly, don't believe this and the words and all that, because now we're even in our description, it's inaccurate already. So imagine these inner beings that are all from one source consciousness, and imagine. So Leanne is there and focused on her Lego player, and others are focused on their Lego player. And you cannot know the intentions and desires of any of the other, right? Like, you cannot know from the perspective of the Lego player.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. From who you really are. You're chatting it up with the other inner beings. You know everything that's going on. You guys are having a party. There's a party going on up there, right? But from the perspective of the physical player, you only see that. And so here's the thing. So there are intentions and all kinds of things that show up. And so when tragedy strikes and things happen, they are always in, Abraham calls this contrast. Wherever there is unwanted, it is the actual sparking of what is wanted instead. Mm-hmm. In other words, from the perspective of Leanne, it's kind of hard to desire anything because this is just a Lego board. I mean, it's a game, right?
Yeah.
But you must lose yourself. You must lose yourself in the Lego figure in order to care, in order to want to, right? And as you lose yourself in that physical, what sparks is desire. I want more. I want this. However, your focus and perspective can easily go to what is already there. And there's nothing to say it will stay on desire versus non-desire.
Mm-hmm.
And the trap of this physical manifestation is that Abraham says that all of our creation happens in the contrast. When we know what we don't want, we know what we do want. When we really, really, really know what we do not want, like this coronavirus, we really, really, really do know what we do want. But here's the thing. Don't you think people living today are getting more and more and more clarity about what it is that they do want, how they want this planet to be, how they want to live their own lives, by the way, how they just want to live, the desire for life. Is that not becoming so clear? Contrast always gives you clarity, and it increases the clarity on what is wanted. Here's the trap, though. The very contrast that sparked the desire has now trapped you because you cannot ask a question and be in vibration with its answer at the same time. You cannot know what you do not want and be a vibrational match to what it is you're asking for at the same time. So as you keep focusing and continue to focus on unwanted, you keep resonating with unwanted. And whatever you focus on, the universe brings you more. It is a universe of attention. It is, here's more of that. Oh, here's more of that. Oh, here's more of that. So some way, somehow, and I experienced this myself. I'm in the midst of this thing, and you look at the stock market, or because stuff comes through Facebook feeds and all that, and it's all of a sudden how many more deaths there are and all of that, and then my mind goes, wow, unwanted, and oh my God, I wonder how much more of that's going to happen. Where will this all end? What are we going to lose? How bad will it get? And the more I stay there, the more, call it evidence and truth, I find for that.
Yes.
However, that however, that is not all that is going on. In any moment, both wanted and unwanted exist, and you have the freedom to focus wherever you want. However, it never feels that way, because as you focus, a momentum ensues, a momentum of attention, and it keeps you stuck in the direction of that. Lucky for us, we go to sleep at night, and when the Lego figure goes to sleep, all perspective and thought of the Lego figure just drops. And what remains is Leanne fully. And the next morning, the Lego figure wakes up again, and the consciousness enters back in. But the trouble is, when you pick up the Lego figure, is that then you say, now, it's a new day, new morning, sun shining. Now, what was it I was worried about yesterday? Oh, I remember. There's the coronavirus. And so then you bring back the attention to that. And it's not very hard to do, because you can just turn on the news, or, someone will call you and they'll remind you in case you forgot. So your focus will go right back there.
Wow. So I'm going to share something that I think really speaks into this. That's my experience. And we do need to finish this. So I'd love to hear your take on that, or any other kind of practical suggestions you've got about how not to get kind of dragged back into the unwanted. So again, I don't think this is any coincidence. Since I've had a daily practice of, as soon as I wake up, before engaging in conversation, certainly before I pick up my phone, I go through a guided, like I say guided, I'm guiding myself. I go through a visualization where I don't really think it probably matters hugely what this is, but it just happens. I go through a visualization where I go and meet with my spirit guides and I'm met with just unconditional love and connection and being more than this Lego player, and have the opportunity to get reconnected to who I really am, what I really desire, get support and guidance. And by the time I've kind of finished that and come back into my Lego figure, like it really does feel like I like immerse my Lego figure back in that world. And then by the time I've kind of allowed myself to actually open my eyes and get back into the world, like it feels as though that experience of me as like all I am is so present for me. And
yes,
the what's possible for me from that place is so present for me. It doesn't feel quite so seductive to get back into focusing on what's unwanted. It's not to say it doesn't sometimes challenge.
Yes.
Feel so seductive.
Well, because what you've done is you've aligned in perspective and vibration with all that you are, rather than the finite that is there. And for now, it's impossible to keep it forever. Like, meaning, you're never going to live always as all of Leanne. You'll never live that way. You didn't want to. I mean, you didn't want to, because you are that anyway, right? Yes. You wanted this experience. You wanted this experience for the joy of it. That is the reason we want to play any game, is for the joy of it. And so you don't ever want to just stay and hold this perspective. However, the power is in the blending of the perspective. And so what's happened is, you're right. Once you're at this very high vibration of all that you are, and from that perspective, it is a lot less tempting to be sucked into that conversation or this conversation. Especially, really, what are we talking about here? We're talking about imaginary conversations. These are all imaginary. These are thoughts being entertained. What if we all die? What if the planet crumbles? What if right? These are just, we are not the creator of any of this, meaning us Lego figures. And we're having these conversations and we are imagining what we do not want. We are imagining what we do not want, and we are engaging other Lego figures to imagine with us what we do not want. Right? How bad is it in your place? Let me tell you how bad it is in my place. By the way, did you hear over in that country? It's even worse. I'm pretty sure we're probably going to go there. So we are here imagining what we do not want, rather than you and I having this conversation and using our imagination of what's happened for you. What are you starting to realize? You're starting to realize how much you love homeschooling. You are starting to have an opportunity. Your kids you're noticing what they're interested in an intimate level that you could never see when they were at school. You're starting to learn things about them. What an incredible opportunity that has never been before in your entire life. And by the way, will never be before again, because in just a few years, they'll be too old for you to be enjoying this aspect of it. How lucky are you to be in this situation right now? How lucky are you? And so it is in this situation, there is wanted and unwanted. And what are you focused upon? And whatever you're focused upon is a creation, and it will create the perspective. It will create the perception of a reality. And you are only ever living in your perception of reality. So that is your entire world.
Oh, wow. I think you managed to live up to my ask to end on something that spoke into this these times, this place we find ourselves, and the opportunity that's there for us. So, Dominic, thank you. Where can people go find out about you and what you do? What's the best? Go.
Okay, so Dominic Scaffidi is the name. My company is hrpossibilities.com is kind of the website. But there's also a website that's Dominic Scaffidi. The last name is Scaffidi. And that one will just point you. So DominicScaffidi.com just points you back to sort of everything else. And Facebook I'm on, and LinkedIn I'm on and very active. So you could connect in any of those ways. And you can include my email and stuff in the show notes if you like. I'm happy for people to email me as well. So,
yeah. Dominic, this has been, it's one of those shows where I really hope it's helpful and interesting and engaging for listeners. But actually for me, it's been this just real immersion into just the magic and creation of all that is. It's been just gorgeous for me personally. So thank you so much.
This is what I love about it's what stayed with me from our first show. This has a feeling of such co-creation with you, because you immerse yourself practically, and and that to me, I can be a geek, and for me on my own, I'll get into it theoretically. I love it. But it is useless unless it has a practical impact in the world in real life. And what I love about you is you're very grounded in that way. And in even the former episode and this one, I really feel that, where for you, it just, it's exciting to co-create with you.
Oh, thank you so much. And this has very much felt like a co-creation. And talk about a practical impact. You've definitely impacted me too. So, thank you so much. Thank you.
Terrific.
Oh man, I loved that episode. So cool. Here are my takeaways. That which is created cannot create. But when we have a sense of ourselves as the powerful creators that we really are, we can bring new things into being. More of us exists as pure life force energy, the energy that creates worlds, than we have here in these bodies. And it's that higher self energy that we can align with our human selves and use to create our world. Life will show you unwanted and wanted experiences. Whichever we focus on will expand. That doesn't mean we should try to deny that the unwanted exists, but that we can acknowledge it and harness its message to get clear and focused on the wanted. The line perspective of us here in this realm provides us with a sense of what we desire to create. We can create anything, and it's our desire that lets us know what we want to create. Lastly, we feel a desire for more, but really it's a desire through our limited focus selves for all. In other words, to be all that we are, infinite, eternal, unlimited life force energy. When we are focused in the direction of our desire, it feels good because we're aligned with the perspective of who we really are. It's harmonious. Love that. So if you'd like to get notes and links for everything we spoke about this week, hop on over to the show notes, and they're at primalhappiness.co/episode 275. And women, if you're feeling your body calling out for that unraveling in a really beautiful and safe space, go check out all the juicy details at primalhappiness.co/unravel. If you don't want to miss out on next week's episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, or your Android or iOS app of choice and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll get each episode delivered straight to your device as soon as it's released. Thank you so much for listening. You've been wonderful. Catch you again next Tuesday.